So before you dive into your property search, if you're considering condos, you should make the decision about whether or not you want to look at TICs, because if you don't, then you can cut them out of your feed and you won't waste your time looking at them. TIC stands for tenancy in common, and all this is a legal form of ownership where multiple people can own different percentages in the same building. There are a lot of restrictions on TICs that you don't have on condos, and it's important to be aware of these before you make that decision. So we'll look at two buildings. One is for condos and one is for TICs. With the condos, each owner has 100% of their unit and then a share of the common area. They have their own tax bill, their own parcel number. Nobody has a say whether they sell it or not, and what they can do as far as rentals are spelled out in the rules of the building, which are called CC&Rs. Typically, the main restrictions are you can't rent it for less than 30 days. You also have no rent control, which is huge because you can keep it up at market rate. There is limited eviction control though, and so you should be aware of what those are. You can get back into the unit once the tenant's lease is up if you want to with 60 days notice, but you can't kick them out to put in another tenant or because you want to sell the building, so you need to be aware of that. With the TIC, it's basically one entity, even though there are 4 units. And so each owner has a share of the entire building. And then their ownership occupancy is designated in what's called the TIC agreement, which is the TIC version of CC&Rs. You only have one tax bill. And so if one of the owners doesn't pay, the other ones have to make up the difference or face penalties. You only have one parcel number. And there are a lot of other ramifications of this. One is there's only certain lenders who will do loans on this property, and the rates are higher, and you can't get a 30-year fixed loan. The longest term you can get fixed is 7 years. It is a 30-year loan, but it's only fixed for 7 years. At the end of those 7 years, if you're still there and you're not selling, it adjusts to whatever the new rate is. There's also a 1% loan origination fee each time you do this, which is 1% of the loan, and that can start getting expensive. The bigger deal with TICs is they're under rent control, which means you can only raise your rent 1% per year as spelled out by the city. Even more important is severe eviction control. Basically, leases mean nothing in favor of the landlord. Once you have a tenant in a TIC, you're pretty much married to them forever. Month-to-month leases mean nothing. Unless they decide to move, they give you just cause for eviction, you buy them out. Now, if you own a building, there are other eviction means you can do, but as an individual unit owner, it's almost impossible. And so, at the end of this speech, most people want to know, well, if there's all that stuff, why would anybody buy one? And the short answer is because they're cheaper than a similar condo in the same neighborhood. But another thing you need to understand is they're much harder to sell. So when you go to sell one of these, you can scrape away a large part of the buying public who simply won't buy them for any reason, whether because of a particular reason they know or they're just misinformed. And so this needs to be a well thought out process on whether you want to do this or not, because you don't want to get stuck in something later. We've done a lot of TICs over the years, and we can advise you on what this exact ramifications are with the particular building, because things like eviction history and number of units also have big impact on value.